Welcome back to our exploration of existentialism and the meaning of life. I'm Shamim, and in our last video we confronted some challenging existentialist ideas, the absurdity of existence, our radical freedom, and the anxiety that comes with it. Today, we move from what might seem like a bleak starting point to something much more hopeful. How we can create meaning in a universe that doesn't provide it for us. Let me begin with a story. During the darkest days of World War II, Viktor Frankl found himself imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps. In these places of unimaginable suffering, he made a profound observation. Even when everything is taken from a person, possessions, status, even the expectation of a future, they still retain one fundamental freedom. The freedom to choose their attitude toward their circumstances. This insight would later form the core of his existentialist approach to psychotherapy and his book Man's Search for Meaning. As Frankl wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Today, we'll explore how existentialists propose we create meaning through our choices, commitments, and creative rebellion against the absurd. At the heart of existentialist meaning-making is the concept of authentic choice. But what makes a choice authentic? It's not simply doing whatever you want in the moment. Authentic choice requires full awareness of your freedom, an acceptance of responsibility, and a commitment to your values despite uncertainty. Think about major decisions in your life, career changes, relationships, where to live. How many of these were truly authentic choices, and how many were made to please others, follow convention, or avoid disapproval? Let me tell you about my friend Elena. She spent 10 years building a successful corporate career, but felt increasingly disconnected from her work. Through painful self-examination, she realized she had chosen her path largely to please her parents and meet societal expectations of success. The existentialist philosopher Martin Heidegger would say Elena was living in what he called the they-self, defining herself through others' expectations rather than authentic choice. Making the leap to authentic choice, Elena left her career to start a small sustainable farm. The transition wasn't easy. She faced financial uncertainty and judgment from peers who couldn't understand her choice. But as Nietzsche might put it, she had the courage to become who she is rather than who others expected her to be. This is what existentialists mean by authenticity, aligning your outer life with your inner values, even when doing so is difficult or goes against social norms. If existence precedes essence, as Sartre suggested, then we create our essence through what he called our projects, the ongoing commitments through which we express our values and create meaning. A project isn't simply a hobby or pastime. It's a sustained commitment that reflects what you value and who you're becoming. It could be raising children, creating art, fighting injustice, building community, or advancing knowledge. What makes these projects meaningful isn't external recognition or rewards, but the act of commitment itself. By committing to something beyond yourself, you transcend the absurdity of existence. I'm reminded of Albert Camus' essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, which we touched on in part 1. Camus concludes with a surprising image. Sisyphus happy despite his eternal punishment. How? By fully embracing his task, by making the act of rolling the boulder his own choice rather than merely his fate. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, writes Camus, in choosing to own his task rather than simply endure it. Sisyphus transforms his punishment into a form of rebellion against the absurd. This is the paradox at the heart of existentialist meaning-making. By fully committing to our chosen projects despite knowing they cannot provide ultimate or eternal meaning, we create meaning through the very act of commitment. Another path to meaning lies in what existentialists like Kierkegaard called passion, not just emotional intensity, but a quality of full engagement with life. Think of moments when you've been so absorbed in an activity that you lost track of time, when the boundary between you and what you're doing seemed to dissolve. Psychologists now call this state flow, but existentialists recognized its importance long before. I experienced this recently while teaching a philosophy seminar. The discussion became so engaging that 2 hours passed in what felt like minutes. I wasn't thinking about myself or how I appeared to others. I was fully present in the exploration of ideas with my students. This quality of engagement stands in stark contrast to what existentialists criticize as detachment or spectatorship, observing life from a distance rather than fully participating in it. Kierkegaard contrasted the aesthetic life, pursuing diverse experiences and pleasures without real commitment, with the ethical life of passionate engagement and commitment. Later he added a third category, the religious life, characterized by a passionate commitment to something that transcends rational understanding. You don't need to be religious in the traditional sense to appreciate Kierkegaard's insight. The key is the quality of passionate commitment rather than detached consumption of experiences. Consider how much of modern life encourages us to be spectators rather than participants, endlessly scrolling through others' experiences on social media rather than creating our own, consuming entertainment rather than creating art, reading about ideas rather than putting them into practice. Existentialism challenges us to move from spectatorship to passionate engagement, from consumption to creation. Perhaps the most radical existentialist approach to meaning comes from Albert Camus' concept of rebellion. If the universe offers no inherent meaning, then creating meaning is itself an act of rebellion against the absurd. For Camus, the absurd hero isn't someone who escapes absurdity through faith or suicide, but someone who stares it in the face and creates meaning anyway. This creative rebellion can take many forms. Art itself can be seen as a rebellion against the meaninglessness of existence. By creating something that expresses human values and experiences, the artist asserts meaning in defiance of an indifferent universe. I think of Frida Kahlo painting through immense physical pain, or Beethoven composing his Ninth Symphony while deaf. These weren't just artistic achievements, they were existential statements, assertions of human meaning and value in the face of suffering and limitation. But you don't need to be a renowned artist to engage in this kind of creative rebellion. Any act of creation, whether it's cooking a meaningful meal for loved ones, writing in a journal, or creating a garden in an urban space, can be an assertion of meaning. This brings us back to Viktor Frankl, who observed that even in concentration camps, some prisoners would share their last piece of bread or comfort others. These small acts of humanity were powerful assertions of meaning and value in the most dehumanizing circumstances imaginable. As Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." We've explored several existentialist paths to meaning today: authentic choice, commitment to projects, passionate engagement, and creative rebellion against the absurd. What unites them is the recognition that meaning isn't something we discover, but something we create through our choices and actions. In part 3 of our series, we'll expand our perspective to explore how existentialists understand relationships and community. If we're each creating our own meaning, how do we connect with others? How do concepts like love, solidarity, and dialogue figure into existentialist thinking? Until then, I invite you to reflect on your own projects and commitments. Which activities in your life reflect authentic choice rather than external expectations? Where do you experience that quality of full engagement that existentialists prized? And how might you engage in small acts of creative rebellion against meaninglessness in your daily life? Thank you for continuing this philosophical journey with me. If you found value in today's exploration, please like this video and subscribe for the upcoming parts in this series. Share in the comments how you create meaning in your own life. I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember that in a universe that doesn't provide meaning, creating your own becomes a profound act of human freedom. I remember when my father passed away unexpectedly. Beyond the grief, I felt a profound anxiety about mortality, not just fear of death, but the realization that my time is finite and I need to choose how to use it. It was uncomfortable, even painful, but that anxiety prompted me to reevaluate what truly mattered in my life. We've covered a lot of ground today: the absurd nature of existence, the precedence of existence over essence, our radical freedom and responsibility, and the anxiety that comes with it. These might seem like heavy concepts, but they're the groundwork for something profoundly life-affirming. In part 3 of our series, we'll explore how existentialists moved beyond these challenging realizations to find meaning through concepts like commitment, passion, and creative rebellion. We'll look at how philosophers like Nietzsche and Camus found ways to say yes to life despite its inherent meaninglessness. Until then, I invite you to notice moments in your day when you're making choices automatically without reflection. Ask yourself, am I choosing this? Or am I letting others choose for me? Where might I be avoiding the anxiety of freedom? Thank you for joining me on this philosophical journey. If you found value in today's exploration, please like this video and subscribe for the upcoming parts in this series. And share in the comments your own thoughts about meaning and existence. I read every comment. Until next time, remember that in the search for meaning, the journey itself might be the destination.